is no stranger to intense rivalries and fierce competition. But the 2023 season promises to bring an unusual twist to the table. Early indications suggest that the Drivers' Championship will be dominated by Red Bull, with the title race likely to be fought exclusively between their two star drivers. While this might sound like a dream come true for Red Bull management, the reality is that such a scenario could spell disaster for the team. While Verstappen is widely regarded as one of the best drivers on the grid, Perez is a seasoned campaigner with a proven track record of pulling off surprising victories. However, if Perez is to make a real fight of it, he will have to capitalize on the fact that the rest of the teams are not quick enough to get involved in the title race. Intra-team title fights can be a double-edged sword in Formula One. While they can generate intense excitement and drama for fans, they can also result in clashes and counterproductive behavior that can ultimately harm the team's chances of success. The case of Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost at McLaren in 1988 and 1989 is a prime example of how such a rivalry can unfold. While McLaren had a significant advantage during those seasons, tensions between the drivers were high, and the rivalry resulted in missed opportunities for the team. The 1988 Italian Grand Prix at Monza is a particularly noteworthy example. McLaren was on track to achieve a clean sweep of wins, but Senna's retirement after colliding with Jean-Louis Schlesser's Williams in the penultimate lap dashed their hopes. It's possible that Senna would have been more careful during the race if he knew that Prost was going to retire. But instead, Prost pushed Senna to use more fuel earlier in the race, causing him to face pressure from Gerhard Berger's Ferrari towards the end of the race. At the Portuguese Grand Prix at Estoril that year, Prost was left fuming after Senna appeared to shove him towards the pit wall at the start of the race. It was a clear signal that the two drivers were not going to give each other an inch on the track. This incident marked the beginning of an escalation in tensions between Senna and Prost, which culminated in the infamous collision at Suzuka in 1989. In that race, Senna and Prost were disputing the lead when Prost turned in on Senna, resulting in a collision that ultimately cost McLaren a win. The Mercedes intra-team battle between Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg from 2014 to 2016 is perhaps the best parallel to the current Red Bull situation. Although Hamilton was the stronger driver in all 3 years, Rosberg was close enough to take the title down to the wire twice, winning in 2016. The pair had their fair share of flashpoints, including infamous collisions in Belgium in 2014 and Spain/Austria in 2016. None of these moments were in the best interests of the team, but they reflect two drivers secure in their own position, trying every trick in the book to seize the advantage. Red Bull itself has had its share of intra-team battles, particularly between Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber, who clashed on numerous occasions, leading to collisions and team order controversies, particularly in 2010 and 2012 when Webber was at his best. However, the looming presence of Fernando Alonso's Ferrari meant that we never got to see an all-Red Bull title fight between Vettel and Webber. The tensions surrounding Red Bull's management of the closing stages of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix had echoes of this era, with Verstappen clearly wanting a run at victory and Perez suspicious of his teammate, especially when it came to the fastest lap point. In Formula One, it's not uncommon for teams to have a number one and number two driver, where the former is given priority over the latter in certain situations. However, even with such arrangements in place, conflicts between teammates can still arise. One famous example is Carlos Reutemann's refusal to let Williams teammate Alan Jones pass him in the 1981 Brazilian Grand Prix. Another notable incident occurred in 1982 when Gilles Villeneuve felt betrayed by his teammate Didier Pironi, who didn't let Villeneuve pass him in the race where Villeneuve had a chance to win the championship. In the 2022 Formula One season, the dynamic between Red Bull Racing drivers Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez has generated some buzz. While Verstappen is generally considered the team's number one driver, Perez is a strong competitor who is hungry for wins and points. While it's unlikely that tensions will escalate to the point of serious conflict, the situation is delicate and requires careful management by the team. As we saw at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, both drivers are fiercely competitive and willing to take risks to gain an advantage. When it comes to Sergio Perez's chances of taking the championship from his teammate Max Verstappen, the odds are stacked against him. Over the past 2 seasons, Verstappen has consistently outperformed Perez, and the RB19 car this year appears to be another notch above the competition. However, the unpredictability of Formula One means that Perez could still cause an upset, with the RB19's significant advantage even on a bad day. Perez could still qualify on the front row and dominate the rest of the field, and if Verstappen were to suffer a string of bad luck and retirements, the points gap between the two two drivers could quickly close. For example, if Perez were to win 2 consecutive races where Verstappen retired, he could gain 50 points, and even the playing field with his teammate. It would then take Verstappen 7 races of finishing ahead of Perez to make up for that deficit. On performance alone, not very. Over their 2 seasons together, Verstappen's superiority is among the biggest among any teammate pairing. Perez has performed the role of support driver, good enough to snatch the occasional victory when things have gone wrong for Verstappen. But when the car is as superior as this year's RB19 seems to be, the second driver's chances of scoring a shock over the season become exponentially better. When second place is highly likely, after even a bad day at the office, the support driver can become a tricky challenge for the lead driver if that lead driver gets a bad rub of the green with reliability. When looking at Rosberg's victory over Hamilton in 2016, it's important to note that Rosberg beat Hamilton in a straight race 4 times. On the other hand, Hamilton beat Rosberg in a straight race 10 times. But of those 10 times Hamilton beat him, Rosberg was able to finish second on 5 occasions. So Rosberg only lost 35 points to Hamilton over those 5 races. On the other hand, Rosberg gained a significant number of points directly as a result of events outside of Hamilton's control in races or beforehand. A power unit failure while leading in Malaysia is the most obvious example, but he was also hit by Valtteri Bottas in Bahrain when he'd started from pole and started down the grid in China and Russia owing to engine problems in qualifying. By contrast, on no occasion did Hamilton score extra points as a result of a Rosberg DNF. The reliability swing, in other words, was far greater than the 5 points Rosberg won the title by. There was no logical reason for Hamilton's sorry sequence of DNFs. At one stage, there had been 3 Mercedes power unit failures between all of the 8 Mercedes-powered cars all year. Every one of them was in Hamilton's car. It can happen. It's like he's thrown red 6 times in a row at the casino, commented Toto Wolff in sympathy. Is Perez as close in performance to Verstappen as Rosberg was to Hamilton? No, he's not. But in this scenario, that wouldn't even matter. So long as he's good enough to finish second in a car that's got a second per lap on the rest of the field, he wouldn't need to be Rosberg close if his reliability was sufficiently better than Verstappen's. So a hugely fast but mechanically brittle car absolutely maximizes the peril of Verstappen being outscored by Perez, not on merit, but just by blind, dumb, random luck. Verstappen is still the overwhelming favorite, of course, but it's more than understandable that he is so preoccupied by reliability. Sergio Perez feels he's on for a much stronger season in 2023, as he is finding himself much more at home with the handling of the RB19, and he reckons he is going to be a thorn in the side for Verstappen this year. Perez said, "Certainly, I feel more comfortable in the car. I think we also learned quite a bit about which direction we took last year. Not just the car itself, but also with how we set it up and how we try to compensate for the weaknesses that it was giving me. And we were just taking performance out of the car, which is something that we managed to clear towards the end of the year. But I think in general, the race pace or quali pace these first 2 races has been there. So it's just a matter of evolving and keeping that momentum going. While Red Bull has revolved around their talismanic Dutch driver for the past half decade, Perez believes the second car syndrome that afflicted the side of the garage he now occupies has vanished. He said, "I fully believe, certainly when I came to the team, things were very different. Basically, they were just going racing with 2 cars because they had to. I can now say that I really feel part of the team. I really feel like I have my place and am well respected." Now, over to you. Can Perez defeat Max Verstappen to win the 2023 F1 title? Or will this be a 3rd title for Verstappen? Let us know what you think in the comment section below.